This is the Five Lights Podcast. Yes, indeed it is, and welcome to episode 10 of the Five Lights Podcast. We've made it to double figures. Happy birthday to us, and in this podcast, we have got loads to get to. The Bahrain Grand Prix has finished, and Lewis Hamilton wins his third race of the season. What a race it was. Wasn't as action-packed as we thought it might be, but a good little chess game there, and loads to get to. So, without any further ado, let's get going! And that, once again, was our theme tune from bensound.com, Happy Rock. If you need any music for your multimedia, head over to bensound.com. Now, I don't do this podcast on my own, as you know. No. I need my teammate with me, my compadre, my brother. He'd never write a number one clause in his contract. It's Ben. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, good. Good race.
Very good, yeah. As you said, not as good as Malaysia, but still a good race for Formula One.
Indeed, loads to get to. I've got, so I've just looked through my notes here. I've got four full A4 pages of notes here. Ben, how many have you got in your little TED-esque notepad?
A bit less than you. I've got two A5.
Two A5. Well, what we'll do is we'll get straight into it. There's no news in these reviews, podcasts. We just get straight into the races because that's where all the news is. And before the race had even begun, Ben, we had some notes, but I'll just give you a 30-second breakdown quickly of what happened in the race. So, Hamilton out-qualifying his teammate once more and being separated on the front row with a Ferrari of Sebastian Vettel in second place. It was a good start to the race for the Ferraris as they both jumped in front of Rosberg, with Raikkonen overtaking him into the first corner, and it looked like the Ferraris were going to chase down Hamilton, but a new and invigorated Rosberg showed up today and took the fight to the Ferraris, overtaking both of them on the track before the first pit stops. Then Vettel tried the undercut and it worked, so Rosberg once again had to overtake on track doing that. There was a little bit of a lull in the middle and we saw lots of midfield fighting, and then towards the end, the second lot of pit stops, Vettel tried the undercut again, it worked, Rosberg again having to overtake him. And then towards the end, Raikkonen starting to charge down as Vettel makes a mistake, causing him to have a nose cone change, which pushed him back into fifth place. Raikkonen now in third, chasing down the two Mercedes. He managed to catch Rosberg, who had a brake problem, running wide into the first corner, and he took second place, with Hamilton also having a brake problem, just a lap too soon for the Ferrari. So, the top three being Lewis Hamilton first, Raikkonen second, and Nico Rosberg finishing in third. Lots going on in the midfield bench, lots going on up front. Mercedes, do you think, looking comfortable today or showing signs of a bit of strain there, coming under pressure from the Ferraris?
I think they looked fairly comfortable, but they were pushing everything I think they had to the limit. I don't know if that's because of the conditions they have in Bahrain, but in terms of overall, I still think they've got a comfortable gap for now over Ferrari, especially Lewis Hamilton. I mean, he kind of just coasted to the end, really, and just controlled the race again like he did in China.
He did indeed. He looked very good indeed again today, and obviously taking his third win of the season out of a possible four, which puts him in good stead going into Europe. So let's get into it in a bit more depth then, Benjamin. As I said just before I did the little 30-second breakdown, there was notes to make even before the race started, with Jenson Button having possibly his most miserable weekend ever in Formula One, and he's having to wait one more week, or a few more weeks, one more race even, until his 100th start for McLaren.
Yeah, he had reliability issues all weekend, from Friday and even yesterday in practice and in qualifying, and then the engineers worked all morning and all afternoon on Button's car to try and get it ready, and they had a uncontrolled electronics problem, so they had to change that, and they had to change the battery as well, and they all looked set to go. And then when they went to do the normal startup for Button, they saw something in the telemetry because of the electronics and the battery that looked unsafe, so they decided to not take the risk of running Button, because it looked like he was going to have a DNF anyway.
Do you not think maybe though that they could have run him a couple of laps just to get some extra data, or do you think that Ron Dennis made the right choice? Who by the way, throughout the weekend actually showed the first signs of some stress. Obviously, there's a lot of backers there in Bahrain for the McLaren team, so he's under pressure to do well there. But yeah, he's throwing his hands up in the air, looking a bit sort of angry, overseeing everything, making sure it was done right, and still couldn't make Button's car ready for the race.
No, I don't think it was really worth running Button's car because I don't know what kind of impact it would have had on the rest of the car for the rest of the season. So if he would have had a failure, what would that have meant for, the rest of his power unit and his allotment, and how much time that would take to change, and if it would actually destroy that part of the car. But yeah, Ron Dennis as well, getting quite stressed, and he's kind of a character that makes people nervous and on edge, which I don't think is great for McLaren, and might be partly to do with some of their problems. He tries to rule people by fear, which isn't too bad, but when you're trying to do something like run a Formula One team and get things done, especially under pressure, it can lead to a lot of mistakes and bad performance.
He's a very intimidating figure, Ron Dennis, and I like the fact that you're worried about Button's allotment there. So when he goes home, he's got some gardening to do. Is that what you meant?
That's what I meant. Yeah, I think he did leave the race early, so that's probably where he went.
yeah. Get the. I mean, it's the time of year. You've got to get those seeds planted. Anyway, so. Another couple of notes of news there. Hamilton asked about fuel saving before the race started. I mean, obviously it wasn't a big issue in the end, but I made a note of it at the time because I just thought it was interesting that they were already talking about fuel saving before even the lights had gone out. Yeah,
maybe he was just double checking, he wanted to know. Maybe it was just small chatter. Who knows? But I think he knew the answer really. But it was kind of a dodgy start really, because we had Massa who couldn't get off his grid slot, and then when they finally got round, the 5 lights took a very long time to actually turn on.
They did. Not like this 5 lights.
Not like this 5 lights.
We're always on it. We're pouncing. We're always there. But the 5 lights did take an eternity to come on. As you say, Felipe Massa didn't get away for the parade lap with an electrical problem, so he was wheeled into the pits a little bit more effectively than last time, where with the Toro Rosso he actually managed to get in there. They got the thing started and he started from the pit lane, and another bit of news that came before the race started. Carlos Sainz Jr. speeding on the sort of Saita lap that's before you even get to the grid, and he gets a 5-second penalty straight out of the gate.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the speed limits are for that. To be honest, when I was watching Lewis Hamilton go around on those reconnaissance laps, he looked like he was absolutely flying. So I don't know if it was because Sainz was going too slow or too
sorry.
fast.
I said speeding. Sorry to interrupt you, Ben. I said speeding. He's going too slow.
Okay. Cause I didn't know if he was going too fast or too slow, so I didn't know either. So thank you for clearing that up. But yeah, must be going too slow then, and I don't know if he had any impact on anyone else. And then there was even more drama, Dan, before the race could even start, with Pastor Maldonado.
Yes, good old Pastor. He's never far from some sort of trouble, is he? He wasn't too bad today, but he's always in the wars, isn't he?
Yeah, he lined up. It must have been a good 6 feet from his start line.
I don't know why he did. I don't know whether he was trying to get an advantage there, because it didn't look like he was going to get any sort of advantage from where he lined up from.
I think he went into anti-stall after watching the post-show on Sky Sports F1. I think he went into anti-stall, or he had some kind of issue, which is why he was too short. And people might be thinking that, he's too short. He's giving himself a disadvantage because he's not as far ahead as he could be, but it does have repercussions for the cars behind, because they're going to catch him a lot sooner.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then he got given a 5-second penalty, like Sainz did as well.
He did. So he's racking up these penalties now.
Yes.
He's doing well in the penalty points score. And then the race finally got underway after the 5 lights went out, after taking an absolute eternity. Good clean start from the guys at the front, and Raikkonen back on form. He's got to the outside in turn 1, managed to get round Rosberg, nearly run to the back of Vettel, but the two Ferraris getting away from Rosberg, and it's separating the two Mercedes on the first lap.
Yeah, it was very intense opening lap and first couple of corners. I'm not sure if Hamilton was looking in his mirrors and got a bit unnervy because Rosberg got caught behind Vettel, and therefore that allowed Raikkonen to just go all the way around the outside and get into third, and then from there Rosberg had his work cut out for the rest of the lap and the rest of the race.
He did indeed, but unlike in previous races, he stepped up to the mark today. Apparently as well, I didn't see the incident, I don't know whether you saw it, Benj, but apparently Maldonado and Verstappen came together on the first lap.
I didn't see this. Obviously, I think Max came over the radio and said that he had damage on his front wing, but on the opening lap, Pastor did go exploring the limits of the track and the desert. So I don't know where he went, but he did manage to come back. I don't know if that had anything to do with it.
Yeah, it was it was funny to watch him because he was coming around, and even Donna, who was watching it with me today, said, "Where's he going?"
He was very erratic in the opening few laps. Was Pastor? Not that we expect anything else, but yeah, he did go quite a way off the track before returning. I don't know if he'd lost something earlier in the weekend or something. I don't know.
Maybe it was because it was dark and he was like, oh, like when you're playing the F1 game and you can't quite see, like you go, oh, no,
yeah.
I need to come back over this way. I think Brundle said he'd been caught out by the wind, but no one else seemed to have any trouble.
His own wind, maybe.
Yeah. But then it sort of looked awesome as well, though, didn't it? We had 3 or 4 cars abreast on the first lap, trying to overtake and cut through. And those sparks, I even wrote this in capital letters, no less. Sparks look awesome. And it makes for such a great spectacle having that titanium floor.
They added, especially in this race with it being a night race as well, they added a hell of a lot of drama. And it just made things more tense when you saw cars overtaking, especially to turn 1 where we saw the most sparks. It was like, are they going to crash? You don't know. It was just, it was the sparks because they hit the ground or because they hit the car. It was really exciting, and it was, like we've mentioned in previous podcasts, it was great to see. It adds that rawness back. But as you mentioned with the 4 cars abreast, we've seen that quite a lot in the opening laps in the first few races this season. Like 3-4 cars abreast on the opening lap, all fighting for position, and normally that would end in an accident, but it hasn't so far, which is pretty good to see.
It is indeed, and it just adds to the fact that these first 4 tracks are pretty good tracks. They're wide enough to get 4 tracks, and this just adds back to your argument, Ben, that we had a few weeks ago and a few podcasts ago about street circuits.
Yeah.
You need to have a wide track to allow these things to happen. So, getting on to lap 4, Rosberg finally catches up to the Ferraris, and he looks a lot more feisty this time round, doesn't he?
Yeah, people have been slating him since obviously China and telling him he needs to step his game up, be a little bit more aggressive, and maybe even a bit desperate. And he was on a charge today, was Rosberg, and he was into turn 1, I believe. Turn 1 he took Kimi, and I don't know, can you say he made a meal of it? He went quite deep into turn 1 and quite wide, but he made it stick and he made a place, so I suppose you can't really argue, really.
I actually think that's part of the move, I've looked at it a few times. Obviously, you want to brake late, last of the late breakers and all that. But it's actually quite smart to put your car there because it means the Ferrari can't turn in. Now, yes, you put yourself under threat from maybe a car behind, but he wasn't under threat from behind. So if he parks his car there and the Ferrari can't turn in, it gives him the better line.
Yeah.
And it means the Ferrari can't get the drive to get him again. I mean, Raikkonen did give him a fight for the next 2 corners, and it did look like a scene from last year's race. But I think it was quite clever from Rosberg, actually, just to park his car up on the inside, knowing that Raikkonen wouldn't be able to turn in and wouldn't be able to get the drive, so he could outdrive him going into the next section, because he did exactly the same later on in the race. But so Rosberg gets the 3rd place on lap 4, looking a lot better than he did last race. Lap 7, Maldonado finds out he's getting his 5-second penalty for what he did on the grid, and Verstappen pits, which is obviously to do with the incident with Maldonado, so he pitted quite early on. And Massa, who obviously started from the pits, who was on the back of the grid, by lap 7 was up to P13. He was flying today.
Yeah, he he was on a charge to begin with. He obviously had a few easy cars to overtake to begin with, like the amount of Mauritius and things. But yeah, he managed to fight his way through, and he actually gave, ironically, the one race that Martini have to cover their logo up is the race they've had the most TV coverage so far. So not such a boring Williams team this weekend, and that was pretty good to see. And as we'll say later, that they managed to challenge a few other cars as well.
They did indeed, and Massa looked very, very good today, back to what he was in 2008, which is what Rob Smedley said earlier in the weekend. So back onto lap 8, and Rosberg begins to attack Vettel, and I actually wrote here underneath my notes, where has this guy been? But Vettel made it a little bit easy for him, didn't he?
He did. Very uncharacteristic Vettel we saw today. He made a mistake going into turn 1, where he just seemed to, go straight on and not make the corner. He locked up, and that allowed Rosberg to obviously gain a lot of time on Vettel, and then overtake him on into turn 1 and turn 2, and that was on lap 9, I think. I think Vettel made the mistake on lap 8, but then Rosberg made the overtake into lap 9, on lap 9 into turn 1.
Yeah, and then we had Hamilton, Rosberg, Vettel, Raikkonen. So we had the 2x2. The Mercedes were out front again, and Hamilton was getting the message letting him know that Rosberg was behind him and was going to come and get him. We thought maybe that Rosberg would catch Hamilton and we'd have a real fight on our hands, because the Ferrari seemed to just drift away slightly.
Yes, Vettel seemed to struggle quite a bit. Raikkonen did start to make a charge, and he was catching the front three, or at least Vettel. But we saw Rosberg overtake the Ferrari twice in the opening 10 laps, and he hasn't overtaken anyone else so far this season. So, as you say, it was a different Rosberg today.
After he did overtake Vettel, though, he was then asked to save the tyres and just be a bit careful on them, which maybe worried him slightly. But he did control those tyres today, and he wasn't complaining over the radio about getting into dirty air and maybe wearing them off too soon. So he did a good job today. Yeah,
and he was told to obviously conserve fuel as well to help his brakes as well. So he had that to contend with as well. I don't know if that was because he was being quite aggressive with his racing, but it didn't seem to affect him that much.
No, it didn't. Lap 10, Raikkonen starts reeling in Vettel, and I've written in brackets, he must be rubbing his hands, because it looked as though he was going to reel him in and maybe take him on the track.
Maybe not for Vettel too long, he wasn't rubbing his hands.
No, but Vettel had a very uncharacteristically slow day today. You just didn't see him on it at all.
No, he made quite a few mistakes today. He said after the race that he was just pushing too hard. So, make of that what you will. I think in the end he made 3 mistakes. The one where he locked up and went wide in turn 1 was the first of the 3. The 3 major ones anyway. And that kind of cost him his race, really.
Yeah, it did in the end. Raikkonen on lap 10 came over the radio and said to his engineer, I can try to go faster, but if I catch Vettel, I will overtake.
Yes.
I will overtake him, yeah. So, and his engineer said, understood.
Maybe Rosberg should have done that in China.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I was going to get to,
Sorry, I saw your thunder again, haven't I?
Yeah. Raikkonen said, I can go faster, and if I go faster, I will overtake him. And that's what you want to see from the teammates. And he wasn't slagging him off. He wasn't saying, "Oh, Vettel needs to get out of the way." What he actually said was, "If I catch him, I will overtake him."
Yeah.
Which is great to see from Raikkonen. Lap 11, Hulkenberg pits, and then lap 13. I don't know why I wrote that. I think that's because it was sort of.
To be honest, I did as well, because it was just the opening of the pit window. So.
Yeah, excuse me. Sorry. Lap 13. This actually happened on lap 11. But it came out on lap 13 over the radio. Rosberg saying he'd made a mistake. He said, I've made a mistake. And that's when Vettel started to get a little bit closer to Rosberg. And the tyres may be going off a little bit earlier than expected for the Mercedes.
Yeah, quite a lot of drivers were making mistakes today, especially the big drivers. So we saw, as we just explained, with Vettel making his mistakes. We even saw Hamilton. He locked up at turn 4 on the opening lap as well. And he ran wide and allowed Vettel to have a look. Overtaking him, and then obviously Rosberg made his mistake as well. I can't remember where it is. I think he just locked up, didn't he?
I believe so, yeah. But lap 13-14 is where it really started to heat up. Vettel goes in the pits on lap 13 to attempt the undercut. Rosberg he pits even a lap later, and Vettel beats him out. So Vettel again being the master of the undercut, Rosberg having to overtake him on track, but it didn't take him too long, did it?
No, they both put on the softs, and I think initially Rosberg was going to run a lot longer on this first set of softs, but I had to cover Vettel, as you say, and I think Rosberg came out about a second out behind Vettel. And he managed to push and catch him again at turn 1, 2 laps later, which was another good an overtake. And I think, believe it or not, this is the aggressive one that would throw up all the sparks, and it's where Hamilton just came out of the pits as well.
He did, yeah.
He had a very slow stop as well.
He did. I've got a bit of radio chatter in a minute about that. But Hamilton coming out of the pits there, if he'd have looked in his mirrors, all he would have seen was a flurry of sparks, and Rosberg and Vettel side by side. He must have been thinking, I need to get out of the way pretty sharpish because this is going to get tasty behind. But Rosberg, I say, looked feisty today. The top three then were within 1 second, so the race was really on. And then on lap 17, Raikkonen comes into the pits from the lead and takes the median compound, meaning he was going to be faster at the end of the race. So switching strategies there for Ferrari, really making it spicy for us.
Yeah, he had to really kind of do something different and cover the other guys, and that was just going to be interesting for the others to watch to see how he would progress, because he was moving quite quick. He came out fourth, and he just had to push and try and catch Vettel again. And going back to the Rosberg overtake, I think Vettel was trying to squeeze him into the inside of the track, and all credit to Rosberg. Rosberg just pushed him back over the other side, and that was a really, really good overtake from Rosberg. And again, more aggression from what we saw at the beginning of the race and what we haven't seen at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, quite right. I mean, I sort of noticed it at the time that they were sort of fisticuffs out there, and we know Vettel can be very aggressive. We've seen him try and push cars into the wall before and push them off the track, and he puts his elbows out when he's overtaking or being overtaken. Not something we see from Rosberg so often, with that reaction just to go, you know what, I'm just going to push you on the other side. I'm coming through here. This is my position, and I've got it. So it's good to see that sort of side from Rosberg today. The other thing that came out in lap 17 was a bit of radio chatter, and this is the start of perhaps what was happening at the end of the race for him. Over the radio, Nico, brakes are a concern, so maybe the start of the gremlins coming in there for Nico.
Yes, he was told earlier, as I said, to try and manage the issue, but it just didn't seem to be going away. I don't know if that was because of how aggressive he was driving. I don't think Hamilton had such issues because he was out in front and could kind of cruise, if you like. So Rosberg having to fight everyone, and because Bahrain is long straights followed by tight corners, that's a lot of brake wear. So it's a difficult circuit for brakes, and that's why Rosberg had the issues he did. I'm sure other drivers did as well, had the same kind of problems and had to conserve their brake wear.
Indeed. Lap 18 is my radio chatter of the day. It's not particularly a comedy gem, but I thought it was quite an interesting piece of radio. It didn't come out on the TV again, it came out over the Sky Sports app, and it was Lewis Hamilton over the radio to his engineer, and this is just after he'd come out from his pit stop. He says, this is a bit close for comfort, and his engineer goes, certainly feels that way, and then Hamilton replies, what happened to my gap? Well, what did happen to your gap, Lewis? You were 6 seconds clear before the pits, before the sort of pit stop started, and then as he comes out, he's less than a second. So, I mean, I think it was a mixture of a poor stop and maybe just some tyre wear issues. I mean, where does that gap just disappear to? I mean, surely he didn't lose 6 seconds in the stop.
No, I mean, he did have a poor stop, but I think again that was only about 3 seconds, so he wouldn't have lost it all there. I don't know. It's difficult to kind of say where he lost. I don't think he had any traffic at that point. We might have done with the man of Mauritius. He might have had some traffic that held him back. But maybe he did have the reference point of Rosberg to try and keep the gap. But he would have had the telemetry on his steering wheel and from the team. So yeah, it's kind of difficult to say on that one.
Yeah, very difficult to say. Just on that telemetry thing there and the steering wheel, something I noticed, I've not noticed this before, but a lot of the teams put the big screens on the steering wheel, don't they? Obviously, so
Yeah.
the information is turning as they turn. I just noticed today, Williams don't do that. Williams have a fixed screen,
Yeah,
don't they?
they have like a Garmin on their dashboard. So they have their steering wheel, which is very small and light, and they say they've got a separate monitor which is kind of bolted and fixed to the front of the monocoque, and it's completely separate. Where you see with like the Mercedes, they've got the LCD screen built into the steering wheel, and a lot of other teams do as well. I think Williams are the only team that have a separate steering wheel to their screen, and some teams I don't think even have the screen. I don't know. I think Red Bull didn't last year, but they do this year, and some teams still just have the tiny strip still, where they have all their data come through.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting. Just thought I'd point it out. So speaking of the Williams, anyway, the horrible thing for the commentators here, the Massa fight that was happening over lap 25, as Nasser makes the move on Massa after being up his exhaust for a few laps, and the Sauber looking supremely fast with that Ferrari engine.
Yeah, this is when Williams' great start, especially Massa, seemed to fall away, and Massa was really struggling. Massa, I noticed, like Vettel, going into turn 10, which is the hairpin that goes onto the back straight, locking up every time, and he was really struggling to manage those tyres and stop, or at least postpone the degradation on his tyres, and that was really costing him, especially to Nasser, who has the Ferrari engine and was a lot faster on the straights.
Indeed, and then the second round of pit stops come in, and it involves Nasser and Massa again, and even Maldonado. They entered the pits with Nasser first, Massa, and then Maldonado. But they exit the pits in the complete reverse order, with Maldonado coming out first, Massa, then Nasser, and almost three abreast.
Yeah, awesome stop by Lotus. I don't know what the time was, but they certainly turned it around and enabled the Lotus to get out in front of Massa and then Nasser, because Nasser had obviously just overtaken Massa and then completely lost it all in the pits. So it must have been a bit heartbreaking for him to see not only one car, but both cars had just overtake him in the pits. And through no fault of the pit crew either, really.
No, absolutely. I say, well, they nearly came out three abreast. There was a couple of question marks whether it would be an unsafe release. Of course, it wasn't. But good sort of fighting, even in the pit lane. That's what we want to see. Three abreast in the pit lane. Absolutely brilliant. Then Ericsson pits a lap later for Sauber, and he has a front left problem. So Sauber having issues with their pits in the middle there.
Yeah, it's really weird as well, because obviously they've got the tyre that's held on by the wheel nut, and they managed to take the front left tyre off, but the nut still remained, and I don't know how that works. That's a bit confusing for me and for everyone else. So, but they managed to. I think he actually just ripped it off with his hand in the end and managed to put the new one on. So a bit strange.
Yeah, a bit strange indeed. Lap 31 then, Carlos Sainz retires. They said on the TV that it was a front left, but I have an exclusive for you, unless you were listening to the Sky Sports app over the radio. I can give you the exact radio chatter that was given there. So Carlos Sainz says something feels weird, something different, something is wrong with the car. Wheel off. The engineers come back and say, okay, and we're checking it. And then all of a sudden Sainz comes back and goes, no, something different, something in the rear.
Oh.
So something with the so Sainz thinks it was something with the rear of the car. Then the team come back and say, difficult race for us, we're sorry for that. And Sainz comes back, a lovely little moment. He says, no, I'm sorry. So good little, the driver not sort of complaining at all, the engineer's not complaining. They just both apologise to each other for what really was a pretty bad weekend for Sainz there. But sort of an unknown retirement then. We don't know whether it was a front left loose or what, unless you've seen an interview in the post-race there, Ben.
No, they did mention your comment where they said it was something with the rear of the car is what they think the problem was for Sainz. But yeah, Toro Rosso not really having a great weekend, unfortunately, which is a real shame for both drivers, because they're great drivers and deserve to finish and prove what they're worth.
Yeah, Verstappen had a very quiet weekend and was sort of fighting at the back in 16th place. Not great for him. And
For my fantasy.
Sort of Or your fantasy, no, but a good test of character, actually, for him, because obviously he's been fighting out at the front and he's had a good run of it. So actually to have a bad race is a good thing for him, really, to experience in F1, so that he knows that it's not always going to go his way.
No, it can't always be, happy, sunshine, sweets and things like that. You've got to have those days that are going to be rubbish. I mean, look at Button. He had an awful weekend, full stop.
Yeah.
And he was saying on the drivers' parade when he was interviewed by Johnny Herbert that this is a lesson for those young people. It's not all rainbows and sunshines and things like that. This is how it's done. This is how I do it.
Absolutely.
That was quite comical from Jensen.
We will miss him when Jensen retires. Hopefully he's got a few years left in him, but Jensen Button is one of the stalwarts of the grid now, and hopefully he can stay around for a few years, because not only is he a great guy, he's a great driver as well, so hopefully we'll see him back in Spain, back on the grid, and McLaren can pull their socks up and get their stuff together. Lap 33 then, Vettel pits again, attempting to undercut Rosberg, and Raikkonen calls in saying that he wants to stay on the prime. He's questioning the strategy.
Well, because I think he'd done so well on the mediums. I mean, he was reeling in Vettel, and, why change? If it's not broke, why fix it? So I think that's where his confusion came from, and, fair enough, but the team came through and said, no, it's going to work if we put the softs on, and as we'll say later, the team were right.
They certainly were. I love the term box, by the way.
Yes.
That's one of my favourites, is box.
Box.
So every time I drive into I must not be the only person who does this. I've been meaning to bring this up on the podcast for a while. When I drive my car, and I drive a Renault Kangoo, which is not the sportiest of vehicles by any means. It's more of a van than a car. But whenever I pull into the petrol station and fill up, I always go box. And there'll be occasions when I'm taking a roundabout and I will pretend I've got a flappy paddle gear shift. and in my mind, and sometimes out loud if I'm on my own, make Formula 1 car noises.
Yeah, I do as well. You're not the only one. Maybe it's just us.
Maybe.
And our other brother, but...
Yeah, if you do the same. Well, Mark's got a bit of a sportier car than us. But anyway, if you do the same, let us know, because we can't be the only people out there.
I do it going into the drive as well. As you know, with our drive, we have a gate. The road kind of leads into the driveway. So when I come home from work or from anywhere, I pull in alongside the gate so I can open the gate, or just pull into the road and reverse in. And I always do that. I always go box, violently in, stop, and then... do the pit stop and then reverse into the driveway.
Glad I'm not the only one. But going back to the race that happened, on lap 33, Hamilton boxes. Hamilton comes into the pits. So he comes in before Rosberg this time. And then on lap 35, Rosberg pits. And Vettel works the undercut yet again. Ferrari getting good at that old undercut. Yeah,
the strategists really earning their money there. And Vettel, I don't know, I think it was really just a strategy that Ferrari employed on that one, because Vettel was obviously having an off day and really struggling. But yeah, Rosberg had his work cut out again. But he had to go into beast mode again.
He did have to go into beast mode. And on lap 36, Vettel again making it easy for Rosberg with a really weird mistake, running very wide into turn one, making it easy for Rosberg to take him again.
Yeah, it was on the last turn, wasn't it? I think he went in too hot on the last corner, and that meant he went wide and going onto the pit straight, and he went extremely wide and then touched the gravel as well, and he actually damaged his front wing end plate, and therefore Rosberg just went, see you later, and got him on the pit straight and then led him into turn one, as you say. But very strange from Vettel, and I think he was just carrying too much speed going into that last corner. Maybe he was just trying to, break the gap to Rosberg.
I think the last time we saw Vettel drive like this was a few years ago when he was driving for Red Bull at the German Grand Prix, where he just seemed to be running wide left, right and centre. He just couldn't keep the car on the island today. I don't know whether it was something wrong with the setup or the wind or the dirt on the track, or whether the tyres reacted on his car, but he just couldn't seem to keep the car in between the white lines today. Yeah,
he really did. It's a very uncharacteristic from Vettel. and we're not used to seeing that, especially maybe Rosberg and Vettel swapped roles today. Maybe that's what we were seeing, because normally we're seeing Rosberg struggling rather than Vettel.
Yeah, but anyway, we'll move on, and hopefully Vettel gets better for Spain, because we want to see him backfiring at the front and not making those sort of mistakes. But anyway, it cost him his race today, as we'll get into a little bit later. Also on lap 36, Max Verstappen retires, and I've written, I can't remember why, maybe you can shed some light on my notes here, Benj. I've written unsafe, question mark.
No, I can't. You're right.
I don't know.
He pulled in to the box, into the garage, didn't he? And he was already in the garage when they showed it that he'd retired. I think it was. Struggling to remember.
No, I know now. It's come to me in a dream. It was another piece of radio that didn't.
Nice to know you're dreaming while I'm talking.
It comes to, it's another piece of radio that didn't make it. What actually happened was, as he pulled into the garage, they said you need to get out of the car as quick as possible because it's unsafe. So maybe it was some sort of electrical issue, maybe a KERS issue.
They did mention, but it's escaped me now. We'll cover that in a podcast after this one when we know, and I'll remember to cover it. But I think you're right. It is something electrics. Yeah, I think that's what Ted Kravitz did mention in his notebook, is that it was electronics failure that he had.
So lap 37 then, Vettel complaining of damage and understeer and all sorts of problems. Even his car was pulling to the left on the straights, he said, on the radio. And then it's all to do with that running wide on lap 36, letting Rosberg go. So he has to pit for a new nose, and Kimi at this point is rubbing his hands, because that sees Vettel go back into 5th and Raikkonen pulling up into 3rd place.
Yeah, I don't know how much damage there was. It didn't seem that much, but because he went into the gravel and a lot of sand, I don't know if a lot of gravel and sand then got caught in his front wing, and then therefore that cost him a lot of aero, and so he had to replace it. But that cost him his race big time, and yeah, as you say, Kimi would have been rubbing his hands and loving to hear that. And then Rosberg then had some breathing space for a while and could focus maybe on catching Hamilton, who was then trying to catch and was catching Kimi out in front. And I think, he did eventually overtake Kimi on lap 40, didn't he, into turn 1?
He did. Raikkonen was slowing because of the tyre wear going off. On lap 39, there was a little bit of a funny set to between Alonso and Raikkonen, as Alonso decides he's going to unlap himself, which was good of him. And Alonso must have loved that, unlapping the Ferrari. But yeah, Raikkonen's tyres were starting to go, and on lap 40, Hamilton takes the lead from Raikkonen. And Raikkonen pits, and I think it was the fastest pit of the day, 2.3 seconds for the Ferrari team, an absolute fantastic stop.
Blink and you miss it, that one. I mean, I think they kept him out a bit too long, really. Not that it cost him in the end, but hindsight is a wonderful thing. But at the time, I think they kept him out too long. And as you saw, Alonso, in a slow McLaren Honda, was able to unlap himself, and therefore Lewis could overtake him as well. But yeah, he pitted for the softs, and he came out in 3rd place because of Vettel's mistake, because Vettel was then stuck in 5th behind Bottas, which was the rest of his day, really, wasn't it?
It was, and this is where we started to see the Ferrari strategy paying off, not sticking with the primes. He was a lot quicker, and he was already starting to track down the 2 cars ahead of him, the 2 Mercedes, as soon as he came out the pits. Lap 42, though, a little bit of a sign, another piece of radio that didn't come across on the television. So a little bit of an exclusive for you here. One of your favourite drivers, Benjamin Eriksson, Hulkenberg came on the radio complaining that he's an idiot, nearly running into the back of me every time. So Hulkenberg not a big fan of Eriksson there in the Sauber.
No, but as you've mentioned before, he's quite ratty, is Hulkenberg on the radio, isn't he?
He is indeed,
I didn't see the incident or incidents, so I don't really know. I can't really comment, I suppose. But yeah, I believe him if he says if it's Ericsson, I say I believe him.
yeah.
But then Pastor, good old Pastor, he got back into more trouble, didn't he? When he boxed.
He did indeed. Right? Yeah, box. He was coming into the pits, and the anti-stall kicked in. And again, over the radio, his engineer was telling him, well, if the anti-stall kicked in, Pastor, just pull the clutches in and you'll kick it out. And he was like, no, it's dead. It's gone. I've lost it. It's dead. So actually, when we cut to him in the TV, they were actually wheeling him into his pit box.
Yeah, they actually pushed him in. And maybe they were just afraid they were going to hit him, so they thought in future when you come into the pits, stop before and we'll push you in just for safety reasons. But I don't know when they had the problem. You saw smoke coming out of its brakes. Did you see the steward at the front with his fire extinguisher? He had his new toy and he wanted to use it quite badly, didn't he?
Hey guys, don't worry, I've got this. No, get out of the way.
They did. They were shouting at him and everything. And I thought he just wanted his little moment. He just saw a bit of smoke and just decided to spray the front of the car.
He's like that over-keen safety worker, the health and safety guy you have at work. He's like, watch that step there, watch this cable. He was like, don't worry guys, I've got a fire extinguisher, I'll put the fire out. And they're like, just get him out of here, will you?
It's like in Iron Man, the film Iron Man, where he's trying to build the best Iron Man that he can do, and he's got that robot with him, and every time he falls over or something, he's got that robot that's ready to pounce and spray him with fireproof liquid.
Yeah, but so the anti-stall kicked in, his engine cut out, the brakes looked fried on it, so that was Maldonado. Yeah, he retired at that point, did he not? Or no,
he kept on going.
Yeah, he kept on going. They got him out again. Yeah, he did finish. That's right. Sorry, Pastor. So lap 47. Nico comes over the radio after his engineer tells him the gap to Raikkonen, and he says, don't tell me the gap anymore. So the first signs of maybe a little bit of strain coming in on Nico, or was he probably right to say that, actually?
I said this to my family at the time. He was complaining from Australia to China that he wasn't getting enough information. People weren't talking to him enough. I mean, even in the pre-show, Brundle had on Sky Sports F1, Brundle had an interview with him where he was, saying that Rosberg, you're grumpy and all that, and Rosberg was saying, the team sometimes forgets we don't have anything in the car, which befuddled me. But now he's complaining that he's getting too much information. So, whatever.
Yeah. I wrote a piece that went up just before just after qualifying. Actually, it went up this yesterday evening about sensitivities in Formula One, and I talked about team radio in that. And sometimes, yes, you can give a bit too much information. I think in this case, maybe it was a little bit too much. I think, obviously, he needs to know the gap, but as it gets towards the end of the race, maybe Rosberg just wanted to focus on driving and just keeping going as fast as he could at that time, and he was probably worried about getting caught by Raikkonen, which unfortunately came to fruition. On lap 48, Raikkonen comes over the radio, and I think this is going to be a theme throughout the season. Come on, move them. They just don't want to move these people. And it's not. It doesn't name the team. It's just these people.
He's done that every race so far, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Complaining about Marcus.
Come on, move these people. Just get them out of the way.
FIA need that magic button.
They do. Yeah. 8 laps to go. Raikkonen has got Rosberg in his sights. Raikkonen is beaming down on him. I've written a note here. Vettel had a bad day. Yes, he did have a bad day.
He did have a bad day.
As he nearly wipes out Bottas on lap 54. Did you see that?
He did nearly wipe him out, yeah. It was just very strange. And I've just been interrupted, sorry. I've just had room service arrive.
Room service has come in for Benj. I mean, I don't get that here. But Donna did make me a lovely cup of tea, actually, before we started. So that was very, very nice of her. So I must thank Donna for making me a cup of tea. She's very thoughtful. So Benjamin's just got his room service. Benj, do you want to sort of give us your thoughts then on on the whole Vettel nearly wiping out Bottas thing, now you've had your room service?
Yeah, Bottas was braking maybe a bit too early, or maybe as usual in going to turn 1, and Vettel just completely misjudged it, or was trying to brake too late to overtake Bottas, and nearly did collect him and take him out and both of them out of the race. But that was very, very hairy moment for, well, at least Vettel. I don't know if Bottas got a decent view of it in his mirrors.
Well, it almost looked like, I mean, you see this more when you look from the Bottas camera angle looking back at Vettel. It almost like he wanted to brake late and thought about doing a move down the inside, then backed out of it and realised he was coming in far too hot and had to go on the outside. I don't think Vettel was really himself today. I mean, some of the moves he was trying to pull were just completely ridiculous, and it ended up costing him massively today. So maybe he'll just write this one off. I mean, everyone has a bad day at work, and this is one of the worst for Vettel.
Yeah, well, we saw Kimi storming through and catching everyone. And Vettel couldn't overtake Bottas for a good 15, 20 laps.
Yeah.
we kept, and that's another thing that bugged me today, is the director and the television coverage was pretty poor, really. I mean, we were seeing a lot of Vettel trying to overtake Bottas, which was fine at the time, but then when stuff was starting to spice up, particularly towards the end, and with Kimi catching Rosberg, we were having to watch that, and we were having to see people's faces. And I remember at the beginning, they zoomed up on some woman's face on the tower at turn 1, and she wasn't even paying attention, really, because as you could see in the bottom corner, all the cars going into turn 1, and she was looking the opposite direction.
I said that to Donna at the time. I won't repeat what I said. But it was something along the lines of, I don't want to see this person.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, it's...
Insert expletive.
You get it with... Yeah, it wasn't an expletive. It was maybe a bit harsh.
Yes.
We get this with most sporting coverage now. They sort of like to take pictures of the crowd, and when there's nothing happening, that's fine. But they do like to do it a little bit too much in Formula One sometimes, and it tends to be the whole focus on girls. And after this whole sexism row that happened last week with Hamilton's spraying of the champagne in this girl's face, I think sometimes people need to pick what they're actually arguing about, because we tend to see a lot of shots of wives and girlfriends, which again is fine, and then we just see some random pictures of girls in the crowd, which, you know, it doesn't add anything to the spectacle. We tune in to watch the race. Maybe I'm a bit old-fashioned in that sense, but as you said, there's some good racing being missed just because we were looking at people in the crowd, and that's not really what I came for.
If I want to see someone's mug during a race, I'll just turn to the rest of my family. But other than that, I want to see what's on track, please.
Hashtag mugwatch.
Yes.
So lap 56, lap 56. Yeah. So Rosberg goes in too deep into turn 1, giving Raikkonen P2. At the time, we thought maybe it's a lack of concentration from Rosberg, or it's a mistake, but it turns out it's a BBW issue.
Yes, everyone was going, he's had a great race, he's stormed through, and he's just completely lost it with 2 laps to go, or 1 lap to go, I think, at that point. And turned out to, be a brake-by-wire issue, which... Obviously, as we mentioned, Rosberg was having to manage brake issues for most of the race, and it caught up with them. And his brakes had not failed, but broken slightly, and therefore he went too deep in turn 1. And Kimi just went, "Okay, I'll have that, thank you. That's an easy second place for me." And as we saw the next lap, Hamilton had the same problem, which was very, very worrying.
He did indeed, and we saw this a few times from Mercedes last year where they had brake issues. So maybe there's a recurrence there of them not being able to look after their brakes as much as they possibly would like to. Just for some people who may not know, Benj, and I'm going to put you on the spot here, brake-by-wire. Mm-hmm. Could you possibly give us a breakdown of what brake-by-wire is? I'm
no engineer, but brake-by-wire is when the Formula 1 driver applies the brake in his Formula 1 car. It's the same as like on an aircraft when the brakes are applied, although in an aircraft it's more fly-by-wire. It's when the brake is engaged, there is an electrical signal sent to the brakes that applies a certain percentage of pressure and clamp to each brake. So it's monitored electronically, whereas like on your road car or older cars, it was all mechanical, whereas modern cars and Formula 1 cars, it's all done electronically. So it is braking through a wire, an electric wire, like a cable that's running through your house. And what Hamilton had said is because he was running behind a lot of traffic and things like that, a lot of hot air was running through his brakes, and that might have been what caused it. Because normally when he applies a brake, it's quite firm. And when his brakes started to go, it was quite a long pedal, which means that it wasn't firm, it was very loose, and his foot was having to go a lot further to actually the brakes to acknowledge. But all it is just an electronic signal from the brake pedal to each brake, and they don't apply the same pressure, they apply different pressures, I think, to each wheel.
Thank you very much, Benj. Considering you were put on the spot there, you did a very good job.
Thank you very much.
Well done. Well, we got to the end of the race, lap 57, and it looked like Raikkonen may be able to catch Hamilton. I think if he'd have had one more lap, do you think he would have caught him and maybe stolen the race?
No, I don't think so. But without the brake bombs, I don't think Rosberg would have been under threat, but I don't think Kimi would have been able to pass. Um, it would have been good to see. I mean, good to see them dicing together and Rosberg trying to defend. But to be honest, no, I don't think. And I said at the time with like 10 laps to go, when they said, "Oh, Kimi's on for maybe even catching Hamilton there," I never bought it. I saw him maybe catching Rosberg, which he did, but overtaking is a completely different thing.
That's right. So the race finished, everyone crossed the line, and as Ricciardo crossed the line, he decided to join in with he decided to join in the fireworks display, and his engine just went kaboom as he went over the line, leaving a lovely big plume of white smoke in his wake. That's another engine surely lost for Ricciardo. I don't know what's going on there. It's almost one engine per race at the moment.
Very timely from Renault. I think just as he went round the final corner, his engine blew up, as you say, and his car stopped just past the finish line. So he only just made it. But that is number 4 engine now for Ricciardo.
He is indeed. So he's going to face a penalty when we go to Spain.
He won't when he goes to Spain, but he will the next time his engine fails. Because this is the last engine he has now to use. So any more components he uses for the power unit, that's penalties. So pretty poor from Renault and Red Bull.
Pretty poor indeed. Pretty poor indeed. Right. So race finish. I'll give you the final classification. 17 drivers finishing in the end. We didn't have too many drivers not finishing. Obviously, we had Button who didn't even start. So, Lewis Hamilton wins his 3rd race of the season, from Kimi Raikkonen getting his first podium, and maybe the tide is turning in Ferrari and Raikkonen maybe taking the mantle on. Rosberg finishing 3rd, Bottas getting the 4th place in the end, good result for Williams and for Bottas there, who had a tough start to the season. Vettel picking up the 5th place after his adventures off the track today. Ricciardo, even though he blew up and just made it over the line, he made it over the line in 6th, with Grosjean finishing in 7th in the Lotus. Perez getting some good points for Force India. Force India and Perez like this track, don't they?
Yes, Perez obviously finished 3rd last year, and I think a lot of the drivers, although they don't do so well here, a lot of them really enjoy this track to drive it, and Perez is one of those drivers.
And Kvyat, who had a tough weekend, not even getting out at Q3, he managed to pick up 9th place in the end. Some good points there in the end for him. Massa finishing in 10th after he started in the pits. Alonso, it was so close. If one car had retired in front of him, he would have picked up the first points from McLaren. I actually noticed this at the end. It's actually a really good finish from McLaren and Alonso, isn't it? 11th place, considering that there were still 6 cars behind him finishing.
Yeah, they did pretty well. I think they keep upping their power unit bit by bit each weekend, and I think your prediction, Dan, of them scoring points in Catalonia in 3 weeks' time is looking pretty good at the moment, barring reliability.
Not too far-fetched.
No.
Yeah, as long as they can get both cars started and get them both finished, I reckon they could secure a point there. So we had Nasser finishing in 12th, Hulkenberg finishing in 13th, Ericsson in 14th, Maldonado, who got started again after his mishap in the pits, in 15th, and Stevens beating Merry over the line for the Mana Marussia F1 team in 16th and 17th. Obviously, we had 3 cars not finishing, which was Button, Sainz and Verstappen, so both Toro Rossos there not finishing. Ben, do you want to give us a rundown of the Drivers' Championship, and I'll do the Constructors' Championship. Have you got them ready?
I've got them ready for the Drivers' Championship.
Let's have the Drivers' Championship.
Okay, so after Hamilton's win, he now sits 27 points clear of 2nd place Rosberg. So Lewis is now on 93, and Rosberg, who's climbed up to 2nd, overtaken Vettel, he's now on 66 points. We've got Vettel, who he drops to 3rd even. Kimi is now in 4th, and he's on 42 points. It'd be worth the mention that Vettel is only 1 point behind Rosberg now in 3rd place. Then we've got in 5th Felipe Massa, with his teammate Valtteri Bottas behind him, and there's only 1 point separating them as well. And obviously Bottas missed one race as well. So Valtteri is, after his incident, is on fire, really. Ricciardo is in 7th, Felipe Nasr in 8th, Romain Grosjean 9th, and Hulkenberg 10th, on the same points now as Max Verstappen, who has 11. Carlos Sainz 12th. Did I say they had 11 points? Did I?
Yes.
Yes. So they have they have 6 points. So Hulkenberg in 10th, Verstappen in 11th, and Carlos Sainz in 12th. All have 6 points. Perez has in 13th has 5 points, the same as Marcus Ericsson in 14th. So they're both on 5. And then the last point scorer is Daniel Kvyat in 15, who has 4 points. And then the only drivers now without scoring any points is Fernando Alonso, Jenson Button, Pastor Maldonado, Roberto Merri, and Will Stevens. So 5 drivers who haven't scored points. And it looks like the McLarens will score points, hopefully in Catalonia, so that might leave 2 or 3 cars pointless by the end of that weekend.
Completely pointless.
Yes.
So, the Constructors' Championship is looking a little bit more like we're used to now, with Mercedes topping it with 159 points, and 52 points behind them is the Scuderia Ferraris on 107. Williams coming up in third, and then Red Bull back into fourth, arguing that they're the fourth fastest car. Sauber in fifth, still that one elusive point away from the 20 that I predicted. Just 1 point away from that 20. Lotus are in sixth place, Toro Rosso in seventh, and the last point-scoring team are Force India with 11 points, with McLaren in 9th and Marussia in 10th. Not bad, really, for Force India, considering we didn't even expect to see them on the grid this season.
No, they've done pretty well to get 11 points, and they've got a B-spec car coming in Austria, so hopefully that will see them be able to challenge the top 10 more, and therefore get more points and challenge the likes of Toro Rosso, Lotus and Sauber.
Let's hope so. So, Ben, who's your driver of the day, then?
Driver of the day, Rosberg. For me,
good choice. Good choice.
He had to come out and show that he wasn't, a number 2 driver, and that he wasn't just a driver who couldn't overtake and couldn't challenge someone. He did that today. He made great overtakes on the Ferraris, and he had to do it time and time again where his strategy didn't work for him. So yeah, for me, Rosberg is driver of the day.
Yeah, and I have to agree with you. He was my pick for driver of the day as well. So we actually have the same driver of the day today.
Yes.
He looked more tenacious today. He looked more like he wanted it. Yes, he finished in third place, but I think actually in the debrief, he'll be very happy with that third place, considering he had the brake-by-wire issue as well at the end. But no one's going to come away from this race and say that Rosberg's a pushover now. They're actually going to go, look at that race. Let's see more of that Rosberg and less of the Rosberg that we've seen in the first 3 races, right?
Yeah, I mean, his car cost him second place today, and he can take a lot of positives today. The only thing that he won't be happy with, that Hamilton is still number 1. So he can take the positives today, though, of his great overtaking. He can then take that to challenge Hamilton in the future.
He can indeed. So let's hope that we see more fighting between Hamilton and Rosberg on the track. Have you got any sort of summary then, Benj? Let's sort of, we've broken the race down in minute detail. What do you take away from Bahrain?
It was really that it's going to be a 2-horse race to the finish, I think. Mercedes versus Ferrari, and that the rest of the field are going to kind of get their updates for Catalonia and the rest of the season, and they're going to be really close, and it's going to be hard to see who finishes. Well, probably 4th onwards. 3rd will probably belong to Williams, but 4th with like Red Bull, Sauber, Lotus, that's going to be, it's going to be quite tough, and especially reliability as well. That was a big issue. But yeah, main point is Ferrari versus Mercedes, and it's not apart from Lewis Hamilton, you could say it's not clear cut who's going to finish where in terms of championship or even in races now.
I think I take away that the fact that we've got a 3-week reset now, effectively. The drivers will have got into a rhythm over these first 4 races, with them coming quite quick. Now they're going to have the 3-week break. They're going to go to Europe. So Rosberg will have a chance to sit down and have a look at what he did well and what he did wrong. He'll have a chance to clear his mind, spend some time with his wife. Hamilton's sitting at the top, and it's difficult to lead from the top. As tough as it's, as weird as it sounds, it's difficult to be at the top sometimes. So he's now a target for Rosberg. He's also a target for Vettel, who had a bad race today, and he needs to put this one out of his mind. But it was a good race for Raikkonen. So Raikkonen's coming back into the mix now, and these 4 are going to be the ones in the pot for the rest of the season, who are going to be challenging for race wins. Another thing I'd take away is what we mentioned earlier. Alonso finished in 11th today. Yes, they didn't get Button on the track and they didn't get him racing, but McLaren, and my prediction of them scoring points in Europe is not too ridiculous, and I think, hopefully, fingers crossed, we will see the first set of points from McLaren come Europe. Ben, Shall we have a look at our fantasy GP quickly?
Yeah.
Because they've updated the scores.
Have they?
So yeah, they have indeed. Do you want me to give you the two leagues that we're in?
Yes,
And where
please
we're
do.
sitting now? So, unfortunately, in both Flat Out Fever and our league, FOF Dan F1 is still top with 566 points. You're second still with 542. So that leaves you, very quick maths here, do excuse me, 24 points behind him.
I'm catching
so I think
him.
he's opened up. I think it's actually opened a slight gap of maybe 2 points
has
there. But yeah, 24 points. So he's still in touch. It's a good thing. More importantly, though, Benj, I'm now outstanding third. So I'm on my own. I've got 513 points. So I've closed that gap back to you now. With quite a good week for me, considering that in my team I had Verstappen and Nasser, who Nasser finished out the points and Verstappen didn't even finish, so that's pretty good for me. But I had Massa, who finished in 10th, so that's only 1 point. But then I had the Williams, the Ferrari, and the Mercedes, so the top 5 and number 10. So I'm pretty happy with that one, Benj. How about you?
Yeah, I didn't do too well with my predictions. All my team, having the Toro Rosso car and Verstappen and Nazir, so they got me no points, but I did get points with Mercedes, Ferrari and Lewis Hamilton. And my predictions, I got Lewis Hamilton. I don't know who got fastest lap, I can have a quick look, but not a great week for me, but it's good to see that I'm not falling behind that much and I'm able to keep that second place and put that challenge on to Flat Out Fever Dan.
Indeed, and if you want to join our league, it's still not too late as we go into Europe. The passcode, it's the 5 Lights League with the number 5, and the passcode is 459062, and that's Badger GP. You can download the app from the App Store and the Play Store, and you can go to their website, www.badgergp.com. They don't just do fantasy F1, they also have articles on there about the race. They're very witty in the way they do things. It's a very tongue-in-cheek website, and a great website for any F1 fans. Benj, I can't remember my predictions for the life of me. I think I had Hamilton to win. I had Hamilton to qualify first, which I both got. I had 0 safety cars, which I had, and then I think I put Vettel and then Raikkonen second and third. So I don't think I got any points for second and third, but I'm still happy with my points haul today. We'll do a breakdown of our other dream team, the UDT one, next time round, because I don't have the information in front of me at the moment. So we'll do that next time around. Ben, anything else finally on the Bahrain Grand Prix?
Good race. It was a good race to take us through a 3-week gap. Try not to think about it too much, and Catalonia will be around before you know it.
It will indeed. It will be here on the 8th to the 9th of May, or the 7th, to the 9th of May. The 7th of May being my birthday, so everyone knows that now. You've got time. You've got 3 weeks to get me a card, presents, anything like that. Just send me a tweet over Twitter or a message over Facebook. Just remember, it's my birthday on the 7th of May. Yes, I expect stuff from you.
I've got you covered, don't worry.
Very good. 7th of May, it's my birthday. Ben's birthday is in the break. Ben's birthday is actually next Wednesday, so we'll probably have to come on and do a happy birthday message for Ben at some point. So Ben's birthday, 20 years old, Benj.
20 years old.
How good is that?
I'm working towards my super license, so it's pretty good that,
that's
qualify age-wise. So it's good to know.
Very good. Just a quick word before we sort of wrap up the show on GP2. Some good racing there this weekend. Did you see any of it?
I saw the first one, or most of the first one. I haven't seen the second one yet, but no, good racing and great performance from Van Dorn and the British drivers as well.
Yes.
Particularly Justin King. Is it Justin King?
Yeah, yes, Justin King. Yeah, Alex Lynn had a good race as well. Slightly unfortunate in the first one that he's lost control of the car. It seemed at some points with tyres going off. But an interesting series to keep an eye on as GP2. As to say, some good racing. And I tweeted out that actually reminds me of Formula 1 in the 90s with the cars being fairly similarly matched, and the names just remind me of drivers from the 90s. So yeah, just if you have a chance and you have Sky Sports or any other means of watching it, just keep an eye on GP2. Ben, 3 weeks, we're going to be back doing a podcast in between, aren't we?
Definitely.
To do some news. So we'll probably do that in the middle week. We'll keep you updated on our Twitter page at 5 Lights Pod, on our Facebook page. We'll still have Instagram at 5 Lights Pod. Head over to the website 5lightspodcast.com. That's with the number 5, and that is the hub for everything. So we'll still be writing blog posts. We'll still be posting pictures and tweets and Facebooks and things like that, so just keep up to date there, and anything we do will go through those sort of media, so just keep them hooked up over the next 3 weeks. If you want to get more F1, if you just can't get enough F1 podcasts and you've got a long commute, or you've got time to fill in the 3 weeks, head over and listen to the On The Limit podcast, the Flat Out Fever podcast, and another one I discovered this week, Ben's the F1 Judge. It's a very good podcast. It's a very funny podcast. So give those guys a listen. We'll try and hook something up and maybe get some guests on in the coming weeks. We're looking to do a series of people who work in F1 and try and get some people on to talk to about that and how they got jobs and how they got their roles in F1. So that's something else to look forward to. So much going on in the Five Lights podcast. But our next episode, TBC, the next race, 7th to the 9th of May in Spain. You looking forward to it, Ben?
Absolutely, always am.
Always am. Right, so that's it from us. The Five Lights podcast is complete, and the 5 lights have gone out. See you in 3 weeks in Spain.
Bye, everybody.